Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Battle Rhythm Podcast. My name is Caesar. I am your host with BFW 2772 in Sherman, Texas. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be doing a veterans presentation report, a VPR. This is going to be for Kosovo, and the reason why the U.S. got involved in Kosovo and why it's so important for the BFW to actually have been involved. So there was a lot of different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give you a historical background of what led to the U.S. to actually be involved in. Give you a 2-year timeline from October 1998 to October of 2000 when it started, and then October 2000 when it culminated with the victory. Basically, the victory was that the Kosovo people were able to actually have a democratic vote for their region there. So I'm going to start with that. So let me give you a little bit of background with this. So back in 1999, like I said, the U.S., 1998, the U.S. was confronted with a massive humanitarian crisis in Kosovo. What they did that threatened U.S. interests and challenged U.S. values. President Clinton galvanized support amongst NATO's 19 member states for military action in the spring of 1999 to force a halt to the systematic and brutal repression and expulsion of Kosovo's people by Slobodan Milosevic regime. NATO's 79-day air campaign successfully forced the withdrawal of Serb forces from Kosovo and paved the way for the deployment of international presence authorized by the United Nations. With a 47,000-strong NATO-led Kosovo force, or KFOR as we come to know, providing security for the province, the United Nations Interim Administration Mission in Kosovo has overseen the return of hundreds of thousands of refugees and is working to establish substantial autonomy and self-government for Kosovo. In October of 2000, Kosovars voted overwhelmingly and peacefully in the area's first democratic elections, an important step in developing institutions of self-government. Having won the conflict in Kosovo, President Clinton is committed to winning the peace and support international efforts to rebuild civil society, ensure the protection of minorities, and restore hope for the people of Kosovo. So, as you can see, the reason why we got involved was because there was a lot of atrocities. Basically, a lot of the Kosovo people were being murdered and killed by the regime of the old Yugoslavia. So, President Clinton felt in that the U.S. needed to help the people of Kosovo. Obviously, there were some other U.S. interests that were there. The reason why we'll never really know the reason why, but obviously they called it a humanitarian reason for that. So in June 10th of 1999, President Clinton gave a speech, and I'm going to read you a little blurb of it to kind of give you the sense of what he was thinking at that point in time. So. He said, "We must be mindful that even though we now have a chance to replace violence with peace, ethnic and religious hatred with a democratic future, a bloody century in Europe with a Europe undivided, democratic, and at peace, there is still quite a lot to be done. In the past 4 months, we have seen some of the worst in humanity in our lifetime, but we've also seen the bravery of our troops, the resolve of our democracy, the decency of our people, and the courage and determination of the people of Kosovo. We now have a moment of hope, thanks to all those qualities, and we have to finish the job and build the peace." And like I said, he said that speech in June 10th of 1999 in the White House, hopefully, about 6 months after the October agreement that I mentioned. So going back to October of 1998, President Clinton went to NATO, and then NATO authorized the U.S. of force against Serbia, and Milosevic does not halt the atrocities being committed by the Yugoslavian military against civilians in Kosovo. A subsequent high-level mission to Belgrade by Ambassador Richard Holbrooke resulted in the October Agreement, under which Milosevic agrees to return Serb forces to garrisons in Kosovo and permit the return of tens of thousands of refugees. I believe there was about 1 million refugees, 900,000 refugees that were actually being driven out of Kosovo. So with that October agreement, Milosevic agreed to allow those people to come back to Kosovo and get back in their daily lives. A month later, November of 1998, under the terms of the October Agreement, Kosovo verification mission, led by the U.S. Ambassador William Walker, arrived in Kosovo to begin the mission of monitoring human rights and serve compliance with the agreement. So the U.S. ended up going over there to make sure that Milosevic was actually following what he had agreed to in allowing those people to come back. In 1999, in March 99, under Secretary Albright, 10 months of intense negotiations to broker a political settlement to the Kosovo crisis culminated with the Rambouillet Agreement. Although Kosovo Albanian representatives signed the agreement, the Serbs refused to do so, instead launching a sustained and systematic campaign of atrocities and ethnic cleansing, leading to the commencement of the NATO air campaign on March 24th. So because the Yugoslav military did not want to actually allow the people to come back, they started killing them at that point, and that's when the NATO decided to actually do the 79 days of intense bombing, as we come to know the 79-day air campaign. April 99, President Clinton delivered a speech in Norfolk Naval Station, and he outlined for the country to in the world to the necessity of NATO's air campaign and importance of maintaining alliance unity. So he's basically just reaffirming that, hey, we are going to start bombing you for the next 79 days straight. So that's what happened in a month later. In May of 99, with obviously the strong U.S. backing, the UN International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia indicted Milosevic and other Serb leaders for the crimes against humanity. So, like they did back in World War II with the Nazis, they actually ended up having a tribunal, and that's how they started doing the crimes against humanity. In June of 99, just keep in mind that June was a very, very busy month for the U.S. So June 99, it started with strong leadership from President Clinton. The United States, Western Europe countries, and Russia agreed to the text a draft of the UN resolution at the G8 summit. Talks in Cologne to deploy an international civil and security presence in Kosovo. So this is what allowed, or it started with the KFOR forces going to Kosovo and having a military presence there. Same month, President Clinton visited Kosovo Albanian refugees at the Stankovic refugee camp in Macedonia, and he reaffirmed the U.S. commitment to peace and end the ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. So he just allowed and told them that the U.S. is actually going to be coming in, and we're going to have a U.S. military presence, or very strong U.S. military presence there. Same month, Secretary Albright and Cohen reached an agreement with their Russian counterparts in Helsinki concerning Russian participation in KFOR, marking the second major NATO-led peace operation in the Balkans in which the American and Russian forces have served together. So this is only the second time after the Cold War that both the U.S. and Russia were involved in actually providing security for other countries and not actually being at war themselves. So in July of 99, President Clinton traveled to Sarajevo to address the Stability Pact summit and began a new era of regional cooperation in Southeast Europe and enhanced efforts to integrate the region into the rest of Europe. Again, in July of 99, at the Kosovo Donors Conference in Brussels, donor countries committed to over $2.82 billion, with U.S. pledging $556 million for Kosovo for its immediate reconstruction. And then following an intense U.S. lobbying, donor countries pledged $1.58 billion at a second Kosovo Donors Conference in Brussels in November of 99 to fund longer-term requirements. So basically all this money that they're raising is just to have more military presence led by NATO, for a lot longer time. In September of 99, the Kosovo Liberation Army, or KLA, disbanded and demilitarized, clearing the path for the Kosovo Protection Corps to be established with the aim of employing thousands of former KLA members in civilian reconstruction and emergency services. So they were hiring the old KLA people to actually become part of the Kosovo Protection Corps and, being able to actually basically govern themselves and police themselves. So that's what they started hiring them for. So we kind of all know how that turned out. So In January of 2000, negotiations with the interim administrative structure designed to give Kosovo Albanians and Serbs a joint role in decision making affecting the province. And then also concluded with a memorandum of understanding with the International Federation of Election Systems on the conduct and the registration and election process. So they started getting the process together for them to actually start, again, the self-government, governing themselves to where they actually be able to vote. And they actually have a pretty smooth ride with us backing them, making sure that they're getting everything in line for them to actually have a democratic vote. In April of 2000, Kosovo-wide registration begins for anticipated municipal elections. Out of the area, registration commenced as well. Municipal elections and tentatively scheduled for October the 8th of that same year. May 2000. So as you can see this. Now I'm born in the year 2000. So this is after Y2K. If you guys remember what that is. So they didn't have that problem back in. Obviously, they probably didn't even have internet back in that day in Kosovo. So unless you had the U.S. actually bringing that stuff in. So July of 2000. With a strong U.S. leadership and personal appeals by President Clinton, the European counterparts' economic reconstruction gathers pace. And then in July of that same year, the early House Conference in Virginia, all Kosovars, Serb, and Albanian participants agreed to a joint resolution outlining steps to prevent violence, and then completes civil registration for almost 80% of the eligible electorate. So there was obviously that's a win because 80% of the population in that were eligible in Kosovo were able to register to vote. So August of 2000, the announcement of October 28th for the date of province-wide municipal elections. And then K4 shut down for the second lead smelter in Mitrovica and significantly reduced hazardous lead waste. So there was other interests that happened during that time, so they were able to actually shut down certain industries to be able to do all this stuff. In September 2000, Kosovo-wide election campaigns begin. Milosevic is ousted from power in the Fry, and the new democratic government elected Fry. President Kostunica has expressed support for UN and negotiated settlement in Kosovo. And then in October, obviously, like I mentioned before, October 2000, there were successful and peaceful municipal elections held in Kosovo. So there were three different things that they actually wanted to accomplish in Kosovo. One of them was reversing the ethnic cleansing. The second point was achieving victory in Kosovo, which they did, with 80% of the vote, and actually leading them to actually be able to vote in October. And then the third one is building a democracy and self-government in Kosovo. So let's touch base with the first one, reversing ethnic cleansing. So as I mentioned before, is that the Yugoslav military was actually doing all these atrocities against humanities, and sending almost 1 million people out of their homes and out of the country to seek refuge in Macedonia. So with that said, one of the points that President Clinton wanted to do is reverse ethnic cleansing. So he achieved that, and he achieved the safe and unconditional return of over 900,000 refugees and displaced persons back to Kosovo. He met the needs in hundreds of thousands of Kosovo victims of ethnic cleansing during their refuge in Macedonia and Albania, and then provided temporary asylum for over 13,000 refugees to the U.S., and also facilitated unhindered access to humanitarian aid organizations and provided over $500 million to date in assistance for food, shelter, and other humanitarian assistance. So they were able to raise $500 million in order for them to actually even have some type of income, or even aid, not income, but aid after this all these atrocities were happening. What they also did is they also provided warm, dry shelter for over 450,000 Kosovo returnees by supporting basic repairs to 76,000 homes that were damaged by the Serb forces. And also, as part of the international effort, the U.S. aid provided $33 million in shelter assistance, while a substantial portion of the Department of State's $40 million contribution to the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, also went towards winterization efforts. So there was more money involved into it to make sure that they were able to withhold the winter. That, I guess it's pretty cold out there. There actually snows a lot. So I've never been to Kosovo, so I don't know their weather, but I'm pretty sure because it's pretty high up, they get a lot of winter. So. The second point that we talked about is achieving the victory in Kosovo. How was that achieved? So they achieved it verifiably, halted all Serb military activities and the withdrawal from Kosovo of all Serb military, police, and paramilitary forces. So they were able to drive out all the Yugoslav and the Serb military out of the country, back into their own country. They also deployed the KFOR, including an initial 8,000 American forces to stabilize the province, and they provided security to the region, and the administration facilitated the return of over 900,000 refugees, as I mentioned before. And in conjunction with the UN International Police, they provided safety and security to the province's inhabitants. Russian troops serve shoulder to shoulder with the U.S. and other partners in KFOR. Russian troops are also serving with a unified NATO-led command structure that ensured KFOR's military effectiveness. So again, the Russians were there hand in hand, able to help along with the U.S. Again, this is only the second time that happened after the Cold War. They also were able to secure and immobilize in disbanding the Kosovo Liberation Army, the KLA, and assisted with the efforts to reintegrate former KLA members into society through counseling, job training, job placement, microlending, seed grants, scholarships, and opportunities in the new multi-ethnic Kosovo Police Service and Kosovo Protection Corps. So not only were they able to disband the KLA, but most of these members from the KLA were able to get jobs in their new force and the new government, to be able to, giving them grants by giving them seeds so they can actually go plant and actually be farmers, and giving them scholarships, so, for either education or things of that nature. So there was a lot of good that came out of this during that time. Obviously, because of all of the inhumane things that the Yugoslavs were doing, being able to actually provide and give some money back to these people that were displaced were good. So even the people that were from the KLA, even though they were under the that old regime, they were able to actually reinstate themselves back into the civilian society, where they were able to actually help themselves govern the new administration. And then the third point, when President Clinton wanted to do was they wanted to build a democracy and self-government in Kosovo. Like I mentioned before, being able to actually get these people from the KLA and retrain them and put them back into society, that helped a lot. So what they did is they provided key logistical, financial, and personnel support to the civil administration in its efforts to create provisional self-government institutions. They restored law and order, and they held successful municipal elections to rebuild Kosovo's economic crisis. And it continued to support a broad base of social services that facilitated inter-ethnic tolerance in the creation of the multi-ethnic Kosovo. So there was, I'm not sure how the political, or excuse me, the ethno climate was back in those days, but I'm assuming that but what I've read and understand so far is that there was a lot of division within Kosovo. There was a lot of ethnic division, so they were not intermingling a lot, or they were not able to coexist. So with the U.S. coming in and actually being led by NATO, they were able to actually start getting all of those ethnic groups together within one government and able to actually coexist. The second point that they have with this, they forged an agreement on the principle backed by the UN Security Council into the future status of Kosovo will be determined through a peaceful political process. So they were just setting the stage for them to actually have a self-government government where they're able to actually complete a democratic process. There was a contribution of over $150 million at the 1999 Kosovo Donors Dinner in Brussels. Like I mentioned before, what it did, it strengthened democracy and support of civil society in Kosovo. It resulted in the result of the conference is what completely funded for 1999 and received a substantial pledge of support for 2000. So not only were they able to cover 1999 for the whatever money they were using for the whole year, but the year after as well. In addition, there was 45% of the Kosovo consolidated budget, and it's now funded through locally generated revenue. So developed a capital budget for Kosovo that outlined a medium to long-term public investment program. So that was good. They were setting them up for basically a central bank, so they can actually start, being able to have their government succeed. They were sponsored along with the European Union with support from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The Sarajevo Summit launched the Stability Pact for Southern Europe in a process designed to strengthen democracy, economic development, and security throughout the entire region. It also fostered a free and independent media by providing financial support and advice on regulatory and licensing matters. There was a daily print in journals or newspapers. There were radio programs and the newly restored radio TV in Kosovo. They were all operational, aiding the international community's democracy building efforts. And it established a network of local independent radio through equipment and programming support throughout the election period. Independent television stations were broadcasting via satellite. So all this money that was raised and there was through the two dinners that they had, they were able to actually get free press, and they were able to get radio stations and TV stations in order for the people to get 80% of the vote back into the vote, so they were able to have a democratic vote, as we mentioned before. So that is in a nutshell what the U.S. ended up doing in Kosovo. So our involvement in it was almost like Somalia, right? And a crisis where it was considered a humanitarian crisis because here in Kosovo, there was the atrocities being committed by the Yugoslav military, where they were killing innocent people. So we needed to go in and set a perimeter and enforce the rules and enforce the making sure that the Milosevic was actually following the rules, and now figured out that he wasn't. Therefore, that's why he ended up being tried in the tribunal and charged with the war crimes of inhumane treatment. So that is basically Kosovo in a nutshell. A couple of personal notes on this. The unit I belong to back in California, the F Battery 144, King of Battle, field artillery. We actually deployed to Kosovo twice. The first time that we actually deployed to Kosovo, I was not part of it. Actually, on that point in time, I was actually active duty Navy. Back in 2000, that was the first time they actually deployed. It was K42, which is basically after 99. There was the second deployment of U.S. troops there to keep the patrol. That's when I actually deployed, and I was actually going to try to bring a guest in today, but he was unable to make it today. I'm hoping that we were able to connect, and maybe I'll do another podcast to kind of get his take and his view on what happened and how we as soldiers and we as the U.S. were seen, like I did with Commander Toomer when he did the Somalia one. I was hoping to do that with this one as well, but we weren't able to connect today. So I wanted to make sure that I'm probably going to do another podcast later on to kind of see his point of view, and then I'll just tie it to as a part 2. So I'm probably going to do that this is part 1. It's going to be a part 2, just kind of putting the personal touch on it, because my intent is to actually get someone that had been in those conflicts, like I mentioned before, and I'm going to do the other parts with Mr. Han, our post member that is World War II, Vietnam, and Korea vet as a Marine. So that's what I'm trying to do with each one of these VPRs, to get a little bit of a personal insight of what was going on there politically, what we saw as Americans going into, how we received that type of thing. So that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm hoping that I can connect with Sergeant First Class, actually retired Master Sergeant Juan Camacho. He was actually, I believe he was Specialist Camacho when he went back in 2000. If he might have been a private back then, because we're talking about 24 years ago. So it was quite a different time and era. So that's what I'm gonna do one of these days, and just getting back and be like, hey, I need you to get on the phone with me so we can actually do this podcast and give you some questions about how it was back then and how we responded and what our role. Because remember, there was an artillery. We're an artillery unit, so not most people when you think of artillery, you're thinking guns and cannons and all that stuff. We were radar. We actually were behind the scenes of the guns. We were actually counter battery. But that means is that when you have a counter battery, you're actually responding. You're letting your guns and your gun line know, hey, we have a point of origin that's coming from over there. You need to point your guns and shoot back that way. So our response time was a lot quicker because we had the radar and we knew when what was coming. So my job was to let them know, hey, that's where we got to shoot, and that's where they're coming from, and hopefully we have a quicker response and we can actually basically get rid of the target, or the what do they call the Navy SEAL game, the Tango Down. So that's what we basically did. So, but thank you guys so much for joining me on this quick 26-minute podcast about Kosovo. Thank you guys so much. If you like the content, please subscribe and like our channel. I'm trying to do these podcasts a little bit like once a week, and this one is a special one for us because obviously we have to do Kosovo. This is one of our requirements to do Kosovo, so I'm hoping that I can give you guys some insight as to why we did it. My reference for today came straight from the Clinton White House, and it's actually from the National Archives. This is something that happened when his website actually was taken down, basically because he's out of office. It just goes to the National Archives. So this is all stuff that I got from the National Archives. So this is all historical based on what the White House put out during that time. So thank you guys so much. Stand by for, just hurry up and wait. Like always, we'll have another podcast here pretty soon. Probably the next one, it's not going to be as boring as this one may have been, or, some people will find history interesting like I do. I love history, and this is one of the reasons why I guess my parents named me Caesar, and I have 2 more days before the Ides of March. So here we go. All right. Thanks, guys, so much again. So like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys very, very soon.